Hi, what I have here on Workbench today is a WEIZE 100Ah lithium iron phosphate battery and their 2000 watts inverter. WEIZE actually sent me their off-grid solar starter kit, along with 4 100 watts solar panels and a 40 amps MPPT charger controller. In this video though, I'm going to concentrate on the battery and the inverter, but I will leave a link to their solar starter kit in the video description below for those who are interested. You probably have seen many LFP battery reviews on the channel by now, and all those batteries, when new, performed more or less to the specifications, which is somewhat to be expected. But one of the batteries I reviewed earlier did fail after some light use, and I made a video on that a few months ago. If you're interested, you can check out that video. So if there's any long-term issue with this battery, you will definitely find out on this channel. This battery is a Group 31 LFP battery, which is fairly standard for a 100 amp hour battery. Now, the 100 amp hour ones do come in smaller dimensions, like Group 27 and Group 24, but Group 31, like what we have here, is actually quite common. Let's actually take a look at the product manual. And you can see that the product manual is actually quite comprehensive, as the manual is quite thick. Let's take a closer look here. Here you can see that the capacity of the battery is 100 amp hours, and the maximum configuration is 4S4P. So that's 4 in series and 4 in parallel, with a total of 16 batteries. Now this is very similar to most of the 12 volts LFP batteries. The maximum continuous discharge current here, you can see, is rated as 120 amps, with a peak current up to 500 amps for 3 seconds. Of course, 300 amps for 5 seconds. Now, I didn't see it mention anything about low temperature protection, so it probably means it doesn't really have automatic low temperature cutoff built in. This means that this battery is not meant for outdoor installation, at least not in the Northeast United States, where winter temperatures routinely drop below freezing. So this is really just something to keep in mind, as LFP batteries cannot be safely charged below freezing. In my opinion though, all LFP batteries should have low temperature cutoff protection built in, as the additional cost to include a thermistor and the associated control circuitry is trivial, so there's no excuse not to build it as a standard BMS feature. The manual definitely has a lot of good information. Here we have the cable size versus current capacity chart, which can definitely come in handy. And by the look of it, here we have more information on installation, so on and so forth. And here we even have some information on recommended solar inverter settings. Very good. To test the battery capacity, I first fully charged up the battery to 14.6 volts with current limited to 20 amps. And once the battery is fully charged, I held the voltage at 14.6 volts for a couple more hours to allow the battery cells to be properly balanced. To measure the capacity, I discharged the battery at 15 amps. Unlike some other battery types, the LFP battery discharge curve is actually fairly flat, regardless of discharging current. So the terminal voltage actually does not change that much during the entire discharging cycle until the very end. I did not use 4-wire sensing on the electronic load, and you can see that because of the relatively high current, there's actually 0.8 volts voltage drop across the wires. So the displayed voltage on the electronic load is actually quite a bit lower than the voltage across the battery terminals, just to keep that in mind. I set the cutoff voltage to be 9 volts on the electronic load, which is lower than the cutoff voltage of the BMS, and that's what I wanted, because I wanted to make sure the BMS actually is doing its job. In reality though, because the voltage drop across the wires, the actual cutoff voltage is more like 9.8 volts on the battery side, but that's still lower than the cutoff voltage of the BMS. As you can see from the video clip I captured earlier here, I did manage to capture the cutoff moment. We managed to get just above 100.2 amp hour in our capacity test. While this number meets the 100 amp hour capacity specification, the margin is actually quite small. Among all the batteries I have tested, some actually had a capacity 5 to 10% higher than what is rated. But this one is just barely meeting that 100 amp hour capacity rating. This could mean that the cells used inside may not be grade A ones. Next, let's check out the internal resistance of the battery. Now, these 100 amp hour batteries should have internal resistance of around, let's say 10 milliohms or thereabouts, although this is not specified in the manual, so I'm really curious to see what the internal resistance is of this battery. So let me hook on the meter here. You have seen me using this internal resistance meter in many of the videos. Actually, this is quite good. I will leave a link, if I remember, in the video description below if you want to check out. Yeah, you can see the measured internal resistance is right around 5 milliohms, which is excellent. Now I have connected up the battery to the WEIZE inverter here so that we can test out the maximum discharging current. One thing I really like about the battery here is you can see WEIZE actually put the specifications right on the battery itself. Here we have the continuous discharging and peak discharging current at 100 amps. That's the continuous, and 300 amps for 5 seconds, 500 amps for 3 seconds. I don't think we're able to test that high, but let's take a look. So for the actual test, I'm going to connect a couple heaters to a variac so that I can adjust the output power continuously. Let me first zero out the meter here. And let's power on the inverter. So you can see actually we're only drawing about 0.6 amps. That's actually good when in standby mode. Now let me connect the variac. And I will turn on the variac. So what I'm going to do right now is ramp up the voltage. So it looks like right around 600 watts, the fan kicked in. And right now we're right around the maximum discharging current, 120 amps. And currently it's dissipating roughly 1400 watts. So let me actually keep increasing. Remember, this inverter is rated for 2000 watts, so let's see if we can get close to 2000 watts. And right now it's right at 2000 watts. And discharging current is at 200 amps. You know what? Let me actually connect the scope to the output so we can actually see what the waveform looks like. All right, just connected an oscilloscope. Right now we don't have any load yet. And you can see that the output waveform is relatively clean. It's a sinusoidal. Of course, we do have some imperfections here. Let me zoom in. You can probably see that better. And you can see here at this section and this section, the waveform is not entirely pure sine wave, but this type of distortion is minimal and it shouldn't be a problem. So let's actually increase the load here. And right now we're at maximum rated power for the inverter. And let's actually keep increasing, see if we can push it any higher. Now the distortion does look a little bit worse. And you can see here it's no longer symmetric. Let's actually increase the output a little bit more. We should have some margin on the inverter as well. And right now you can see we're continuously outputting over 2100 watts. So at around 2200 watts, you can see that now we're oscillating. The inverter actually shuts off, and that's actually expected behavior. So let me actually change it to 2000 watts. So the inverter does not shut off. And I don't quite like the shut off behavior because you actually probably saw it shuts off, and then when the power draw drops below 2000 watts, and then it starts back up again. And that unfortunately will cause some oscillation in the output. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it run like this for a while, at 2000 watts and see what the thermal profile looks like. Alright, it's been running for a few minutes. I did a rough calculation of the efficiency of the inverter at 2000 watts. You can see based on the number we have here, right now it's 10.8 volts, and it was roughly 2000 watts, and the input current is 210 amps. So given the numbers here, the efficiency is actually above 88%, which is actually quite good, considering right now we're at maximum output power. The spec only specified the cutoff voltage at 300 amps. That is for 5 seconds. So my guess is that you can probably get away of current up to a couple hundred amps for some time, as long as the BMS does not get too hot. And you can see from the thermal image here, the battery is getting pretty warm. So I assume if I keep running at this output, probably will eventually cut off due to the thermal. And I took a few thermal images. You can see here is the inverter. The inverter itself is actually running quite cool. Keep in mind that we're currently running at almost twice the maximum continuous rated current for the battery. Now let's actually take a look at how well the inverter handles the inrush current. For that, I'm actually first gonna just start an electric drill because I want to take a look at the output waveform here. All right, let's take a look at how well it handles the electric drill by itself. 3, 2, 1. And you can see that it actually handled it with no problem. So now let me actually turn on the heater. So right now we're drawing about 1400 watts already. So if you remember the test I did earlier with many other inverters, the electric drill when first started, the inrush current actually will be around 15 amps on the AC side. So let's actually see if the inverter can handle that. Now it should, because according to the manual, the inverter actually can handle a 4000 watt surge. So this should be within the limit. So let's start the drill. 3, 2, 1. You can see that, no problem at all. I just connected the inverter to my power supply, and right now the inverter is off, as you can see here. So the current draw is actually quite minimal, is at roughly just 40 milliamps. And this is the standby current, because the power switch on the inverter is actually a soft switch. And so let me actually turn on the inverter and let's see what the current draw is. All right, now let me turn it on. I know according to our test before, the current was roughly around 0.6 amps. So you can see indeed, it was drawing right around 0.6 amps. It's going up and down a little bit, but that's the current draw. What I'm interested in now is what the cutoff voltage and what the overvoltage protection voltage is for the inverter. According to the manual, the under voltage protection is right around 10 volts, and the over voltage protection is right around 15.5 volts. So let me dial down the voltage and let's see at what point the inverter cuts off. So right now it's 13.8 volts. So right now it's 10.7, 10.5, and now you can hear it start beeping. So let's increase the voltage here. Let's increase to 15 volts. Right now it's 15.4, 15.5. So at 15.7, it triggered the overvoltage alarm. I didn't measure the output. Let's actually take a look at the output, whether or not the inverter cuts off the output during the overvoltage or undervoltage protection. All right, let me ramp down the voltage again. So now you can see the input is right around 10.5 volts. Of course, there's some discrepancy here, but the output is still not cut off. So let me further reduce the voltage. 10.4. Right now it's 10 volts. Okay, so that was just a warning, but at 9.8 volts, you can see the output actually was off. So let's increase the voltage again. And this time to 15 volts. Right now it's 15.5 volts. And the output remains at 120 volts. So right now we exceeded the upper voltage limit, and you can see the output gets cut off immediately. So the behavior here is actually slightly different than the under voltage protection. Let's see if it recovers if we drop the voltage. Yep, it recovered with no problem. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. The inverter also came with this remote control. The idea here is you can hook it up and you can monitor and control the inverter remotely. So let's actually take a quick look here. And the cable that is used for the remote control panel, I think is just standard Ethernet cable. Let's connect it. I still have it connected to the battery here. I don't know why it's powered on by itself. Let's actually turn it off. And if I press it again, you can see that it will power up and the display mirrors what is on the main unit. So this is actually going to be useful if you are installing in a fixed location. And here is the other side of the inverter. Now, the one thing I don't quite like is actually how these battery terminals are located. You can see here, they're actually located on the side, and the protection cover is actually protruding from the side. You can see here. Now, these covers, of course, are just snapped on. You can take them off very easily. And the side is actually protruding. All right, right now I just zoomed in. You can see the side after the terminal is mounted is actually protruding outside of the case. And it's even more pronounced if you put the cover on. The cover does not fit that securely either. Let's try to get it on. You can see that it's essentially just snapped on, but it is protruding quite a bit. From our testing today, the WEIZE 100Ah battery performed actually pretty well. It was able to handle the maximum load current with no issues. I will be using this battery along with all my other LFP batteries regularly, and will keep you updated if I run into any problems in the long term. For the inverter, it handled the load with no problem, the output waveform looks good, and it's definitely a solid 2000 watts inverter. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the battery and inverter are part of WEIZE portable solar starter kit. The kit also includes 4 100 watts solar panel and a 40 watts MPPT solar charging controller. If you're starting a DIY solar project, this is definitely something you might be interested in. I'll leave a couple links in the video description below. Alright, I hope you enjoyed the review. If you liked the video, please remember to give it a big thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. If you want to further support my work, please consider becoming a member and joining the channel. Your support makes videos like this possible. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.